I'd like to call the August 19th, 2013 Finance Committee meeting to order. Chair would entertain a motion for the consideration of claims.
Mr. Chair, I would move to approve the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of, need to make sure this is matching up. $564,221.20. Elon credit card in the amount of $4,061.46. Manual checks written in the amount of $167.33. Checks written for payroll liabilities for August 9th in the amount of $652,122.94 for a total of $1,220,572.93.
And I'll second that motion. Are there any questions?
I have none, Mr. Chair.
And I have no questions either. So all those in favor of the approval of claims say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carried. Do we have any other business today, Mr. Weaver?
I don't have any business.
All right. Short and sweet meeting today. So, meeting adjourned.
I now call the August 20, 2013 regular meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Would Councilmember Guard please lead us in the pledge?
Thank you, Mayor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the city clerk please conduct the roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Mary Ellen Christensen.
Present.
Councilman John Lars Baker.
I'm here.
Councilman Eric Heiser.
Here.
Councilman Rich Guard.
Here.
Councilman Jonathan Fabian.
Here.
Councilman Todd Smith.
Here.
Mayor Ron Warpness.
I'm here as well. The chair would entertain a motion. We're not excusing anyone. Moving along. I declare that we have a quorum present this evening. The chair would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. At this time, we will have communication from the floor, citizens' comments. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is already on the agenda will be given an opportunity to speak later on. I would ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Is there anyone that would like to address the council this evening? Okay. Next agenda item is the consent agenda. Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda by title only, please?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes August 6, 2013 regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes August 13, 2013 council work session. Approval of the minutes August 19, 2013 Finance Committee meeting. Approval of Finance Committee recommendations for August 19, 2013. A malt beverage permit application received by Cesar Palma and Denise Gamboa, September 28, 2013 for a Mexican dance at the fairgrounds from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m. A catering permit application received from Lapeer, September 14, 2013, for a Paws and Pearls fundraiser at Reach Foundation from 4 p.m. to midnight. And another catering permit from Lapeer, October 19, 2013, for a Help for Health fundraiser at Fairgrounds Fremont Center, 4 p.m. to 2 a.m.
Your Honor,
Yes.
it's the recommendation of the Finance Committee for the approval of claims to be paid in the amount of $564,221.20. Elin credit card in the amount of $4,061.46. Manual checks in the amount of $167.33. Checks written for payroll liabilities for August 9th, 2013 in the amount of $652,122.94 for a total of $1,220,572.93.
Chair would entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda.
Your Honor, I'd move to approve consent as presented.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Agenda item number 8 is transfer of restaurant license from Terry Sonder with Brewed Attitude to Inga and Jacob J. Tyra, doing business as Roasted Bean and Cuisine. City Clerk's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. The City Clerk's Office received an application from Inga and Jacob Tyra. The application has been filled out appropriately. It's been certified for from the Liquor Commission as well, and the fee has been
Chair would entertain a motion regarding this transfer of a restaurant liquor license.
Your Honor, I move to approve the transfer of the liquor license from Terry Sonder to Inga and Jacob J. Tyra.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor votes aye. Agenda number 9, bid award. 1% committee force recommendation, Watt Court Overlay Project. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. As you know, we talked about this at our last meeting. 71 had informed the staff about CWC, their paving project coming up from Watt Court that would end our Circle Drive there. And it was discussed at the council meeting, and we decided that we should get 3 different quotes for this particular paving project. Just for clarification, for state statutes, 35,000 and under, we're not required to get bids. But our own purchasing policy states that anything over 5,000, we're required to get 3 informal quotes. And so this is following that policy. So we got 3 quotes from 71, stuck with their same bid, Western Wyoming and Dave's Asphalt. It looks like Dave's Asphalt is the apparent low bidder. And so we're recommending approval for Dave's Asphalt in the amount of $24,546.40 for overlaying Watt Court.
Okay, thank you. The chair would entertain a motion regarding this bid award.
Your Honor, I would move that we award the bid to Dave's Asphalt for the overlay on Watt Court.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion on this particular bid award?
Your Honor, just one thing in reference to
Councilman Smith.
our last meeting. In looking at both bids together, I just wanted to make sure that Courtney was comfortable with the funding that's in the bank versus what we're going to award for these 2 items, 9 and 10.
Yes, Your Honor. I am comfortable with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Smith. Is there any other comment? I also just want to make sure that the bid that 71 Construction submitted is the same one, and they were given the opportunity to resubmit to read.
Yes, Your Honor. We asked for same
Okay.
overlay, 2-inch overlay with fiber from all 3, and 71 chose not to rebid.
Okay.
They felt they had given us
I
their
just
best
want to make
price.
sure that that's clear, in as much as they had made their bid public. Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the bid award to Dave's Asphalt signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Mayor votes aye. Motion carries. agenda item number 10. Bid award 1% committee force recommendation Woodridge Estate Overlay Project. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. As you know, this is another one we discussed at the last council meeting. It was tabled in concern that we didn't have enough money from 1% monies that came in. Between that day and now, we have received that amount of money. So we're confident that we can go ahead and award this bid for $358,771 to 71 Construction. And that is for the Woodridge Overlay Project, which is the neighborhood kind of in back of the Holiday Inn back there. And they're just going to overlay it. That area back there has just become a little aggregate almost. The pavement's in pretty good condition, but it's the aggregate that's sticking up all over the place, and so an overlay would be very helpful for that. And just in a clarification that Councilman Fabian had brought up, there are portions of concrete repair a part of this bid, so there's not an issue of that we're going to have issues later on of drainage problems that are going to deteriorate what we've accomplished with this bid.
Okay, the chair would entertain a motion regarding the bid award for Woodridge Estates.
Your Honor, just a point of order. Do we need to remove that from the table or just another motion to approve?
Your Honor, I'm sorry, you need to remove it from the table.
And you need a motion to that effect?
Yes.
So I'd move this item back onto the agenda or to be voted on for this evening.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to untable this particular agenda item. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Mayor votes aye. Motion carries. Okay, and now we would entertain a motion for the bid award to Woodridge Estates.
I would move to approve the bid award to 71 Construction in the amount of $358,771 for the Woodridge Overlay Project.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to award this bid to 71 Construction. Is there discussion at this time? Okay. Does the chairman of our force committee have any comments or everything go?
I'm Wendell Mank. I'm chairman of the 1 Cent Committee, and everything's a go. Thanks to the help of Don and Steve and Courtney, we've worked out some new plans, how we're going to be presenting things.
Okay.
We're going to present things with money in the bank to pay for them as we go. The major concrete project, with Don's able help, we've tabled that, and we're going to rebid that probably the end of March or in that time period somewhere. And by that time, Courtney's going to have the money in the bank. She assured me of that. So we think we're on a different track here, and we're going to keep on moving. We'll bring these projects up, so as we have money to pay for them, and
Yes.
we'll get a lot of work done.
Great. That's good news, Wendell. Thank you for all your hard work. Okay, we have a motion and a second on this bid award. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor votes aye. Okay, agenda item number 11 is weed cutting and spraying of sidewalks. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Are you excited to talk about weeds? In recent discussion with some of our public works staff, I was told that we've been cutting weeds on Main Street and Federal, Sunset, Pershing, and Broadway, and a few of the streets. And so I referred back to the code, and in section 9.12190, it states, "It shall be the duty of the owner, leasee, or occupant of the real property within the city to cut or dig and destroy and remove all weeds and dead trees upon such property, upon the streets and alleys within the curb lines in front of or abutting such property." And so from this, we learned that it's the responsibility of property owners to remove weeds in the sidewalk abutting their property. And really the only rationale that I can come up with related to doing something different than what the code said is if we were more consistent in saying that we're going to do arterial roads, because those are gateways to our communities, and that would be, arterials would be Main Street and Federal. But I guess it's my recommendation that that we should follow the code and make it everyone responsibility, no matter where you're at, responsible for cutting the weeds on the sidewalks in front of your business, residence, whatever it is, just to be fair and consistent. I don't like the idea of us going up and down the road and cutting on some street just because it happens to be a collector street, and then go down a residential and do nothing. It seems like it's a little inequity that we're establishing, so I would recommend that we would follow the code. There are other alternatives that I put in my staff report. We can continue with the same practice. If you agree with the way they've been doing it, that we can continue to do that. We can just do the main arterials, or we can do main arterials in all the collector streets so we're consistent, or we can just do all the sidewalks. That would be quite a feat to do. I had Greg put together some numbers for me as to how much time and money we spend on these particular streets that I've mentioned, and he estimated that we spent about $2,400 in the last couple months weed cutting and spraying on these particular streets. That equals about 80 hours of manpower. And like I said, that's kind of an estimate because we can't go exact. But the other issue that was brought up in this is, I think we've told people in the past that they're responsible for cutting in their alleys up to the center line of their alleys. Well, when you review the code, there's not anything that talks about maintaining the alleys or how far into that. And so that may be a common practice that we've had in the past, but I would suggest that the council would ask us to come back and prepare an ordinance to solidify that, if that's your will. Some of our alleys are some of the worst weed areas around. And it seems if we're going to have the property owner going up to the front of the curb, that we should be doing the alleys too, and that would help in that process of keeping our town clean and beautiful for everybody. So that's just another avenue of this staff report. So if there's any questions or...
No. The chair would entertain a motion regarding the weed cutting and spraying in order that we can have a discussion on this issue. So.
Your Honor, I would make the motion that we follow city code regarding weed cutting and spraying.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Any comments?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Councilman Smith.
I think we either need to follow the code and set the example for the citizens, or we need to change it to include whatever language we would like to see with different roads. I had never noticed this practice until this summer, when I saw them cutting weeds on Sunset, and I live on Sunset. My weeds have never been cut, so I've cut my own, but it seems like it rewards those who aren't diligent at cutting those kind of weeds. And then I saw us cutting weeds again on Pershing as well. But I think we just need to be consistent. If we have a code that says everyone's responsible, then we either follow that or we change it to put the language in there that says we want to maintain certain roads or not. So, and I think we've also had some discussion come up with the council as well of concern of us not maintaining the property we do have for weeds. So if we've got extra time to be spending with spraying weeds and weed eaters, perhaps we need to take care of city property. We discussed, I believe at our last meeting, the College View area that we're going to lease out for a horse arena that has weeds along that area that we don't necessarily take care of well enough, and things like that. So some of our city parks, we could edge where sidewalks are being eaten away and things like that. So perhaps we could use our money and our manpower on our resources as opposed to private property.
Okay. Any other comments?
I just completely agree.
Okay.
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Gardy.
last night I was out spraying my own weeds and put down 150 gallons of tiller, and I think we have an excellent weed crop. County's done a good job of that for us, and the weather's been that way. I see some problems. I parked my car to go to the fair and had to walk a ways, and we have a fair in Riverton, and there's weeds up and down the sidewalk And I do think it reflects on the city. And I don't think, it would have taken minutes to remove those weeds from the corner of Monroe to the fairgrounds, in my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong about that. So I do think there's occasions where we should focus our attention on, especially either that or, ask the fair board to send somebody out and take care of the sidewalks that are in adjacent to. When I got home last night, I had 2 phone calls. I get very few phone calls for city problems. They both pertain to weeds. I think Rosie's working on one. It's for the Ryan Park drainage that runs through, and the city has purchased all that and maintains it extremely poorly. The road is like a BM track, and we don't do anything with that. You can hardly pass through it and get to the additional parking that the city purchased. I think Councilman Smith's comments that we could set a better example of doing our own weeds is a real good comment. But as I drive through Riverton, I have a real concern about every 4th yard is left to dry up and go to weeds. And I don't know if it's economics, that people can't afford it. I don't know if our water is too expensive to spend on their yards, but it's a lot of residences. It's not a few. If you want to go check and count them, it's about every 4th house, and some are gone clear to Talcosha. And one thing about an ordinance that always is a problem for me is that now we have to go get the weed police out, and we have better things to do. And so I would ask for the citizenry of Riverton to consider the fact that they have neighbors that would like their property taken care of and the weeds not to blow from one spot to the other. I have plenty of weeds myself. I'm doing my best to control those. It is a problem. It's expensive to maintain and take care of. And yet, it's pretty easy for us to sit here on the table and say, you should take care of the weeds in front of your property and the weeds behind your property. And yet we put a spike strip in front of everybody's house. There's 7 feet to 9 feet of city property that's owned by the city in the front of everybody's house throughout the city. And if you go out there and try to mess with that 7 feet, you'll get a comment from the city. And so I have a lot of people that approach me and say, well, why don't they cut those weeds? And so, I think that there's no way for us, certainly we could pay for all the weeds to be taken care of. I don't think it's that big of a deal. But I do think there's a pride of ownership that tells you that you ought to clear the weeds in front of your house and in your alley. And it spruces things up. As to the artilleries in Riverton, how do we determine which is the most vital? And, I see the city crews taking care of federal, and I think it's a good idea. I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea because no one's out there pulling those weeds. And just because they're supposed to doesn't mean it gets done. So I really see this as a spot for some discussion of how we talk people into taking care of their properties. Because I can get you in the truck and show you a lot of properties that are just not getting any attention. So I think it warrants some good discussion and maybe some public affairs from the city of Riverton. Thank you, Your Honor.
Anyone else?
Your Honor,
Yes.
I guess I would be remiss.
Okay.
Come get your weeds.
As my other hat, as the supervisor for Fremont County Weed and Pest, and as a councilman, I hesitate. As the councilman, I don't want to micromanage the street and alley department. I hope they understand that. Okay? And yet, I think there's an incredible amount of room for improvement in the way we go about taking care of weeds inside the city limits. And maybe we're terrified of pesticides. I'm not sure. But just as an example, the city owns a big old strip of property on West Main Street right across from the Maverick there. And I think that's been mowed 3 times, and yet it's dominated by Russian knapweed, which is a designated noxious weed. It's a difficult weed to control, and the mowing only serves to spread that plant and make the stand heavier and thicker. And it grows right up to the back fence of everybody that lives along the street there. And if we went in and sprayed that with a little bit of herbicide about the first week in June or the second week in June, you wouldn't have to mow it at all. It'd just be grass. Now, I'm not saying that the city needs to turn it into a park, but apparently we own it. And I don't know that maybe somewhere along the line it'll be converted into a piece of green strip that we maintain and mow and will be available for the public to whatever. But at the present time, it just seems to me like we spend more time working on that than we would need to if we went about that in a little more thoughtful way. And I have seen in the past a number of places that were treated chemically where we got, I thought pretty good weed control, but that doesn't seem to be a consistent policy from year to year, where we get to or what we do or how we go about that. It seems to me like the bike paths would be an important thing to try to maintain. I don't know if you're familiar with puncture vine at all. But if you ride a bicycle in Riverton, then you will know what puncture vine is, because you'll have a flat tire every day. And puncture vine is not hard to control. It's just that it germinates quite late in the summer when the soil temperatures are high, and we've gone out and sprayed all the kochia weeds and stuff, and we think we're done, and then here comes the puncture vine. The bike paths are full of it, the streets are full of it, the schoolyards are full of it, and all we do is complain because we have flat bicycle tires or flat wheelchair tires, and it would not take a great deal of effort to do that. I don't think it would, at any rate, and I've been doing this for 35 some years. I think a piece of sophisticated equipment and one guy in a few hours a day could make a huge amount of difference in those areas. Okay, one of the challenges that we have is the crack between the sidewalk and the curb. Well, okay, so we're talking about in the 1 cent that the city is going to replace the curb and gutter. Okay, and then it's the landowner's responsibility to the sidewalk. So it seems to me like would not be inappropriate for the city to try to take on that particular crack between the sidewalk and the curb, and then the curb and the asphalt. And we have lots of weeds in both of those locations, and there's a number of products that are on the market today that can be used very safely there. You wouldn't have to worry about the neighbor's trees or the flowers or the gardens or anything if you use the proper technique. And so part of what I'm supposed to do for the city is provide you with technical assistance, and I'd be glad to do that at your request. Okay, but I don't want to micromanage you. I don't want to tell you how to do your job. But as it has been observed here, that there's quite a little bit of property around town that belongs to the city that we've gotten for one reason or another, and we don't seem to be doing anything to maintain it. And if we were doing a little more diligent job on the city's property, that might show at least the guys that neighbor that we have an interest, and we might make things look a little nicer. So I don't know, how about the rails to trails through town? The city plants trees on that and we mow it, right? Okay, but we sure don't spray the weeds. At least I don't see much evidence of it.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? I'd just like to say that I agree with everything that's been said. And when this issue was brought up, when Mr. Weaver brought it forward, why I was like Councilman Guard. I just see this as an opportunity to have a public discussion about the public's responsibility for their property to take care of it, and the city's responsibility to take care of our property, and to try to live up to the code the way that it's been presented to us, and with the one caveat that the code doesn't appear to be complete in referencing into the alley. And I know in my alley we've got some industrial sized weeds up there, so, and they seem to be getting bigger, much to my wife's chagrin. So at any rate, we're like Councilman Guard, we're killing them every chance we get, and it seems like we get a lot of chances. But you know, the staff time that we're using on public streets, we can use on our own properties and whatnot, as Councilman Baker is pointing out. I would certainly think that it would be appropriate, if we haven't already, to have the Weed and Pest come and do a training session for our staff in that particular area, to use their expertise and guidance and to get the most mileage out of that. Otherwise, I think our people are just going out and killing weeds as they would as a novice, the way I would. And if I see one, I try to kill it, and then next week it's back. And so it's quite a project. But regarding the spike strip that you had mentioned, I have one of those in front of my house, and I haven't found the city to give me any complaints at all about it. In fact, when we've just done some work on ours 2 or 3 years ago, the only thing I heard from the city was a thank you, because it did improve the look of the neighborhood. And I think for most of us, you know, anything that we do to our property helps our neighborhood. It helps the property values that we have and that we're investing a lot of money in. And when we have a neighbor that's next door to us that's not taking care of their property in spite of their responsibility, then it brings down the value across the whole neighborhood. And not only does it bring down the value, it really makes for surly people. And we run into them every once in a while. I've had a couple meetings on those issues, and it's not pleasant. And if people would just look around their own home and take care of what they're responsible for, it would certainly make for a better world. But other than that, I support the direction that we're going. And
Your
yes,
Honor?
Councilman Baker.
Could I add one more comment to
Certainly.
my remarks, and that is that the state statutes for weed and pest regulation in the state of Wyoming establish a mill levy, a property tax mill levy that collects funds for the control of designated noxious weeds and pests. And if a city is greater than 5,000 population, they have the option of withdrawing from the county weed and pest district and taking their money with them. Okay, and so the city of Riverton and the city of Lander do that. So the property tax money that's generated out of the city of Riverton, okay, from the state mill levy that's levied for weed control in the county, is given to the city of Riverton for that purpose. Okay?
And that goes into our general fund.
Right.
Okay.
Your Honor. Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Guard.
any idea of the volume of that amount?
How much that is? About $70,000 a year.
About 70,000?
$70,000 a year, yeah. Now, I mean, it's all used for some kind of weed or pest control activity. because we treat mosquitoes, use that money for mosquito control, and I'm sure that the mowing that goes on will be charged against that. Okay. My thought is that the funds might be used in a different way and provide a better result.
Or at least used more effectively, possibly.
That's right.
Certainly makes sense.
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Dart.
I rented from the county weed and pest a machine quite capable of spraying a lot of weeds, maybe even too big for the average person, but maybe we could do the same thing, create a few units that would be able to be rented or purchased and help them supply the right chemical, and then allow them to spray their weeds with those and return them back to the city on a loan situation. That's what the county does. It cost me $10 whole to rent their machine. And, I have more weeds than the average guy. And so, but that would be something that would be positive. And I think that's what we need to look at is positive ideas to try to help people take care of the problem, because right now the weeds are so tall that I don't know, that spray is the best thing. Next I'm going to turn loose the big mower, and Lars suggested that we spray them and let them die back and then mow them, but they're going to have to be mowed. And so if we could get some kind of educational information back on Channel 11 if it needs be, and discuss that and try to get people aware of the fact that they are responsible for those things, and mostly they're aware. The negative comment comes, at least to me, in the fact that why doesn't the city come take care of these weeds? And we don't really have the time to send somebody out to check everybody's property and cut their weeds. And so somehow we need to get the information out that why don't you help us out and figure out something, hire a young man with just a weed cutter and weed sickle and sickle down some stuff and help us out and better the look. And instead of me stepping over the weeds on the way to the fair, I can bend over and pick a few. I've been known to do that. And so, those are more positive things to do than to sit and argue over what your neighbor has and what your neighbor doesn't have, because that conversation never goes anywhere. And it really does disappoint me when we're constantly trying to write another ordinance to send the chief out and take care of. And so I just think that we ought to get some kind of positive movement forward on weeds. And Lars's comments are, $70,000. I'm sure we're spending every bit of that, but maybe we could retarget that to where people could come in and pesticides, you got to mix two things, and maybe we could make it simpler or easier, or get some help, some staff help that would say that, this is pre-mixed, and a gallon of this, most people are only doing, average city lots are under 100 feet. And if we could get that much chemical in the machine and say, go spray your front yard, your backyard, and bring this back, and we'll give you back your $10 deposit. It would be something positive that people could come and do. Thank you, Your Honor.
Point of clarification, I'm hearing 70,000 on this side and 7,000 on this side.
70,000.
70,000. Okay.
Yeah. And there's additional mosquito money on top of that.
Are you thinking we're speaking too loud on this side of the table?
Well, I'm not sure. That was quite a spread there, and I just wanted to make sure which one was correct. Okay. Is there any other comments that anyone would like to make?
Your Honor, I just wanted to clarify, we have been looking at that property down next to Ryan Park, and we have not determined that is city's property anyway. The Bebout owns that property all up there, and then RVID has an easement over that. But we don't know if there's an agreement then with RVID with the city, since we put essentially a bridge over that. if it's our responsibility to maintain that, because we've had a property owner saying, hey, you need to come cut the weeds over here, and we're like, why are we cutting the weeds there? And so that spurred that discussion, and so we're still researching to see what's our responsibility and what's not, because sometimes we find that we're just doing things and we don't know why we're doing them or who told us to do them. And we really need to have a rhyme or reason to say that this really is city property and we have a maintenance agreement with someone to do it, not just to go out and mow. Otherwise, we're back to inconsistencies and mowing for some and not for others.
Yes. And I think that internal consistency is really important. Otherwise, you end up with, well, you're doing it for so-and-so, but you're not doing it for us, and how come? And it gets into a pretty indefensible position. I don't disagree with what Councilman Gard is suggesting. Another ordinance isn't the answer. We've already got an ordinance. And all we're trying to do is get the community to recognize what the ordinance says and to be responsible in trying to comply with it. So if we want to change the ordinance and back off, then that's one thing. But we already have an ordinance on the book, so we're not. And as far as the clarification of that ordinance, just so that people will know that it goes to the center line of the alley, as well as, I had always been told when I was on the council in 2000, that it went from the center line of the street to the center line of the alley in front of your property was your responsibility. And so your discussion about the weeds that are growing in the street, cracks in the street, and those kind of things, I understand the connection, with 1% money, and but boy, I would hate to go down that road. So we have enough problems staying on the.
Your Honor,
Yes.
when we cut Ryan Park 2 to 3 times a week with a 16-foot wide mower, and yet you can't see the park for the weeds in between the road and the bridge, we would need to retarget our efforts when you got to whack your way through 16 feet of jungle to get into this really nice lush yard that we're mowing. And so I don't think that takes a brain surgeon anywhere along that. And whether that road's in dispute, the city has property clear to the end of Ryan Park, which is 99% of the length of the road. From Bebout on is the shortest distance and the best maintained road, I might add, because there's no traffic on it. Everybody's turning into the park and causing the traffic problems. And so I think that's somewhat lame to say we can mow the park repetitively per week, but we can't mow the weeds that are on the sidelines of the park. And so Leclerc, if that's their ditch, which I believe it is, you know how they maintain a ditch. They got a big track hoe, and they come and dig the bottom out and plop it on your green grass.
Yeah.
And you don't want to invite them to come help clean up. And yet, if it becomes a real problem, we could line that ditch. But I don't see the money to do that either. But it would increase the parking, and it would take care of the weeds. And so there are some other options, but you just keep mowing certain sections of town that are luscious, and then you have to hack your way through the weeds to get to them. Doesn't make a lot of sense either. So I think we need to use a little bit of, and I think that's what we need to ask the citizenry of Riverton. Use some common sense. If there's a great big weed out in your driveway, please cut it down.
I agree.
Yeah, Your Honor, because I'm the same way. When I go out to mow my front yard, if I've got even weeds out in the street, I'm out there spraying them or pulling them out, because I think it's in the best interest of everybody to try to make our community look the best it can. And I don't really look at it to say, well, that's city property, I'm not going to do anything, because really that affects how my house looks. I could have an immaculate yard and have weeds growing up through the street. It's just not good practice. I don't think twice about it. I go out and I take care of it.
Okay. I think we've about beat this one to death, so we're going to get out here a little early, it looks like.
All right.
We have a motion on the floor to approve and enforce the ordinance as presented, and All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Mayor votes aye. Thank you. That was interesting. Reports and comments, council committee reports, and council member roundtable. Councilman Baker. How is our mosquito doing?
Well, I think maybe we've kind of, I hesitate to say it, okay? The mosquitoes have been really tough in Riverton. The last 3 weeks or a month, really bad. And I was out last night for several hours after the sun went down, and I didn't see a single one. And, but I hesitate to say that means it's kind of over. But at any rate, we've got traps out tonight, so we'll know tomorrow. However, even last week, we were still recording very high West Nile virus titers in the mosquitoes that we were trapping. And so there's, I believe, still considerable risk from mosquito bites. People need to protect themselves from that standpoint. And then Councilwoman Christensen and myself attended the, what do we call it?
Solutions Committee.
A Solutions Committee associated with alcohol sales in the community and that type of thing. And I met with a number of folks from with liquor licenses, and we discussed some of the issues that they're confronted with and things that we might do at the city. I think mostly we agreed to meet again.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Christensen.
Your Honor, I'd just like to elaborate a little bit on the Solutions Committee. For me, it was very nice to go to that meeting. It mirrored some of the other cities in Riverton that I've been to their alcohol coalition meetings. Everybody was at the table. They were all sitting there together. Really enjoyed it. Started out, maybe a little bit rough, and then it kind of, everybody came together at the end. So I feel it was a great attempt or a great first attempt at coming up with some really good solutions for to lower the DUI rate in Riverton and Fremont County and everywhere else. So I just hope more alcohol retailers show up at the next meeting, and that will be in December. And you can get a hold of Tana Groomsmith or I forgot the young man's name.
Charles?
Noel
Cooper.
Noel Cooper. From Injury Prevention, they schedule those. They did a great job, and I appreciate everybody that did come to the meeting. So it was a wonderful meeting just to see everybody come to the table and listen. Thank you.
Thank you. Kaiser.
Yes, just I guess the only thing I have, I was gone last week, but did want to comment on the Job Corps groundbreaking. That was something that we were awarded right after I got on council, and here we are almost 8 years later, finally breaking ground. So a tribute especially to our senior senator, Mr. Enzi. He doesn't like to take any credit, but I really believe without him this doesn't happen. I had doubts all along the way. I had doubts even up till Friday morning that it was actually going to happen. I don't know how many times we were told, yeah, it's going to happen, yeah, it's going to happen, yeah, we're going to have, I mean, I think the groundbreaking was scheduled, at least to my knowledge, at least 5 times in the last 6 or 7 years, and never happened. So happy to see that go off, and a lot of praise for Senator Enzi, one of the few that seems to be able to get some things done in DC. So very proud moment for the city, and now we can get that thing moving, build it, and looking forward to getting it open. So that's all I have tonight.
Thank you. Councilman Guard.
Mayor, I did go to the chamber meeting, and they didn't have a quorum present, so they didn't conduct any business, and they're working really hard. They do a wonderful job for the city of Riverton, and anybody that needs help, if they would approach Jim, he would be more than glad to assist them with anything that they requested that was legal, I think. They do a good job. The other thing that I wanted to comment on was we had an email that at least hit some of us on the council about mosquitoes on 16th Street. Lars responded in length, and I appreciated his response. I spoke with Stephen, and I do believe we got some more spray in the air, did we not? And Steve took a look at that and realized that we could get a little bit more spray in the air and focused on the perimeters of Riverton. And I know my house made a world of difference, and I appreciate the city's efforts. I think the city staff is miraculous at response, and up at Job Corps is the exact same thing. If we had to shovel of dirt that's on Griffey Hill, we'd still be there trying to get a full shovel full. And so I think they just need to be commended. From just almost the hours after I spoke with Steve on if we could afford to do some more mosquito spraying, I could smell it in the air. And so I do appreciate their response and how he handles the city employees and how well the city employees do their work. Again, the chief wrote a letter pointing out to the mayor that some of the city employees stopped and picked up some trash off the streets. I saw that again this week myself. And so I just want to commend the city staff, and I think they do a wonderful job. And I think all we need is the direction to cut loose the reins and let them do their work. And so I would like to say thanks for those things. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Fabian.
Let's see. I guess both the committees that I am liaison for, actually, one is supposed to meet tomorrow night. The other one, the Revitalize Riverton Committee, hasn't met for a while, although I do have a meeting scheduled Thursday with the chairman of that committee just to kind of update on the status. And it's my understanding that they will be presenting to this council the first week in September. So we will look forward to hearing their plans there. But other than that, I don't really have anything to report at this time.
Okay, thank you.
And I had no meetings that I attended, so no reports tonight, Your Honor.
Okay. City Administrator's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor. Did want to have a little discussion about, a while ago we talked about having cleanups. And we had a discussion with the council, and it was determined that we would, council member wards would have these cleanup areas and invite people within your ward to come and do that. We haven't had any takers on that right now. We're having people that are calling the city asking if we're going to do a fall cleanup. And so I wanted to know if you'd like to revisit that to see if we want to try something either the same that we've been doing in the past or to modify that. I know some of the issues they've had in the past of where everyone drags everything out to the alleys and then the city staff takes 3 or 4 weeks to pick it up is maybe not the best idea to do that, because we end up with a lot of material that either can't be disposed of, or refrigerators or paint or hazardous waste. I guess my solution in what I've seen in other communities do that's pretty successful is to have a couple of locations around the city where it'd be manned by a city person on a Saturday, where people could drop those things off during the certain hours and we could have a cleanup day that way. That would be not as much staff intensive manpower or overtime we'd have to do if we're trying to clean up the alleys. And so I wanted to know if you guys were interested in doing that. I think there's money in our trash budget that we could do something like that and provide that for the citizens. But we kind of need some direction from the council if we want to move forward with that. One other thing I wanted to bring, or two other things. We received a couple complaints about a particular asphalt company that's out of town that's going through the city. Our staff has approached this company twice. to say that they need to register as a contractor, and they've got about half the material turned in. So we have turned that over to the police department to enforce that. But I just want to let people know that there is a couple concerns, but I have no way of verifying that. I'm not going to speak ill of a company that I don't really know about. And then finally was, just the weed and pest. We decided that we would try to do it a third day or another day added to the outskirts of town, because all of our complaints related to mosquitoes were on the outskirts of town. People that lived right on the vicinity. We haven't had any complaints about people inside, because I think they get enough coverage with the alley and the street that they're getting plenty of chemical out there. It's the ones on the outskirts that are not getting enough because they're so close to the county and that's not being sprayed, and so they get quite a bit of mosquitoes. And so hopefully that's been helping out. Particularly we want to do that with this, the West Nile out there. That's all I have, unless you want to talk about the cleanup day.
Thank you. I guess I'll cover two things. That yesterday evening I took a short trip over to Lander at their groundbreaking of their new skate park over there, and it was very nice. Mayor Wolf gave a brief talk, and their parks person, and it was very nice. They had root beer and ice cream for everyone, and they probably had 100 kids around there that were just going every which direction. And in talking with Mayor Wolf, why he indicated that his grandson, I believe it was one of the first ones that ended up at the hospital as a result of his skating activities. So ended up with a mild concussion and everything, and they've got signs all around it that use at your own risk. And I think it was just a wonderful event. It was very well attended, beautiful park, and so I just hope that we can move forward with our plans here. I see we've got our representative here with the skate park, and so I was very encouraged after attending that last night. So don't give up. The other thing, Mr. Weaver and I just attended a 2-hour meeting with Sergio Maldonado today, and that was very enlightening and interesting to get we had a very candid discussion, I felt, on a lot of different subjects regarding the Indian culture and the way that we could better interact with them and they with us. And we've got a lot of ground to go, but I really felt good about it, and I'm looking forward to more of those kinds of opportunities. Regarding the direction on the cleanup, I'm very supportive of that, but it seems like what happened when we started charging for waste by the pound, then everybody pulled back, and if it's going to cost me money to put garbage in then I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to pay it, and it's backing up on us, and so we have to figure out some way to keep our community clean, do it in an equitable fashion and fairly, and whatnot. So I personally am very supportive of whatever direction you, Stephen, feel would be the best way to go on it. I felt when the suggestion was made that the council members take that and do it in their ward, why this isn't going anywhere. I felt pretty confident of that, but there may be some modification of that or something. But there are a lot of citizens out there that they don't have pickups, they don't have a means of hauling stuff to the garbage if they wanted to. I remember a good friend of mine lives right up the alley from me. I was down having coffee with him, and he indicated that someone had dropped off a mattress at his garbage container in his alley, and he was wondering when the city was going to come and pick it up. Well, it's not ours. The person that dropped it off is the one that's responsible for it. As soon as we pick it up, then we have to pay it by the pound. Well, it's not his. And so everybody's looking the other direction and waiting for someone to pick up the darn garbage. And you can go up and down our alleys, and they're just covered with stuff like that. And we have to figure out a way to, so that we can, if it's garbage, get it into the garbage stream. And how to do that equitably and so that everybody pays a fair share of making that happen, I don't have a clear grasp of that solution, but it's certainly something that we need to work on. So, does anyone else like to comment on our?
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman.
just
Christian.
one other comment. I'd like to say thank you to some citizens. It was a couple Sundays ago, this hot weather we've been having, went up Main Street. And because of the weather, it became obvious that our planters were in dire need. I called the people that I had phone numbers for, not thinking anything else and hoping they would live. And I just wanted to say thank you to these folks. They took the bull by the horns and got 5-gallon buckets of water, went up and down Main Street and watered our planters in, several days of hot weather. So I'd like to say thank you to them.
Okay. Yeah, we have
They
beautiful.
know who they are.
We have beautiful plants on Main Street, and we need to do everything we can to keep them alive. So. Okay, any other things for the good of the cause?
Your Honor,
Yes, Councilman Garden.
I think that's a great move. I would have tried that too, to lay it off on other people, onto the council, as if we don't have anything else to do. I think I get about 50 pages or so a week from you to look over. So the trash problem is a real problem, and maybe we need to take a work session and discuss that, because we need to be as helpful once again as we can be. The county's got us over a barrel. The EPA's got them over a barrel. It's a bunch of baloney, and yet we need to get things cleaned up. My mother had a friend complain that somebody dropped a mattress off in a television in her alley, and the city wouldn't pick it up. And so Mike was standing closest to her, so he had to go with her, and it cost him 30-some bucks by the time he took the mattress and the television, and the television was the most costly. And so it's not a small thing to try to help somebody out. And so I'm not opposed, and I'm sure Lars would work with me, and we could sponsor a trash pickup for Ward 3, and I'm not opposed to doing that if that's something that you think is a good idea, and we could collect trash in a couple different locations and take it away. I'm sure the other councilmen would be more than willing to do that. I don't think anybody sidestepped that as much as where do you start with that effort, and exactly how do you want it done. And we don't want to get out there and get a bunch of promises made and no trucks show up. And so when the trucks do show up, we still have to empty them. And so I think it's a really good idea, and let's put a work session together and plan it out and make it work. I think it's very workable. That Channel 11, they run it in a loop at Dairy Queen. I'm surprised where that shows up. And I'm real surprised that people watch it. This is like watching paint dry, if you're asking me. But there are people that are paying attention to that. And so if we get the word out, get the containers where they're usable. We've had jobs here in town where we put a container out on a Friday and come back on a Monday, and it's full of furniture. I'm sure Mark has experienced the same thing. It's amazing how people find those containers. And so, I don't think that we have to be real reluctant at it, but we ought to get organized and put some kind of effort together and get it advertised so people can work with us. And once again, it'll probably be just those that already do a good job of what they do. And we won't get to those households that are really the true offenders. But at least if we start setting a good example, that's where we should start. Thank you, Your Honor.
Yeah, Your Honor, I recall in times past where either the city or maybe it was the county involved as well had a refrigerator freezer day where For a week, you could bring your old refrigerator or freezer in, and then they made arrangements for somebody to pull the Freon out of it, and then they, you know, went into the metal pile, and I don't recall seeing that type of thing happen for quite some time. I can remember quite a push we had a few years ago on tires to try to pick up old tires and get old tires out of the way because they breed mosquitoes, and I don't recall anything like that. And I think you're absolutely right. It's the idea that now that everything goes to the dump is worth 8 cents a pound or something like that, and and so then it does chill the interest folks have in taking their stuff to the dump, and so it does make things a little more difficult, I think, to work with. But I guess the thought strikes me that maybe on some big items or something like that, maybe we could afford to have a free day where, you know, the city paid for the tipping, you know, to cover certain kinds of items, and that might be a way to kind of partner, get some kinds of things picked up.
I like the idea of, you know, just having some large, you know, 20-yard things and let people put their garbage into them. And, you know, of course, the city then would have to pay for, you know, the disposal of them. I understand that, but it seems like we're going to end up paying for it one way or the other and having to fight with people whose it belongs to, and it's not supposed to be in that dumpster, and it just is interminable. But if we had places like that where people could come and dump their garbage into, you know, and obviously we wouldn't want to put household waste in it because we've got that covered, but I'm sure that we would pick up a certain amount of that from out in the county as well. If we've got those big dumpsters sitting around, why, people coming into town will just pitch off their garbage in that, and that'll be another thing for us to wrestle with. It just seems like it's never the problem, it's the reaction to the problem that we have, and I think that anything we can do to get garbage into the garbage stream is good. Otherwise, our community is going to become the garbage dump, and that's not what we want. So, at any rate, do you have?
No, Your Honor, we can tack that on to the next work session. I think we have one topic to top with solar power, and we can add that to it.
Okay.
And just have a discussion, because I think the idea maybe would be on the same day we just have a dumpster in each of the different wards at a specific location and get it all accomplished in one day instead of...
Maybe have one employee there to just
Yeah.
monitor what's being
Yeah.
thrown into it, and so that we can kind of pick and choose.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a good idea.
And then the councilman can go through it and get all the good stuff.
Hey, there you go. I won't have to go to the auctions. Okay. Anything else for the good of the cause? Chair would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.